Thunder split the night open like a curse from the heavens. The plains answered with silence, wide, endless, and cold. Elias Carter sat by his fire, its glow trembling across the wooden walls of the cabin he built with hands that had once known blood. The wind pressed against the windows, begging to be let in. He ignored it, the way a man ignores his own past. Then came the knock, soft, hesitant, almost a whimper. He froze, listening. No one rode this far into the hills during a storm. No one came here at all. He reached for his revolver, heart steady as the rain began to fall harder. The knock came again, weaker this time, followed by a voice barely clinging to breath. "Please, take me in. I haven't eaten in days." He opened the door and found her there, a shadow in the downpour. She swayed on her feet, her skin pale beneath the soaked strands of black hair plastered to her face. Mud clung to her turquoise dress, beadwork dull beneath the rain. Her eyes, dark, wide, unbroken, met his, and something deep inside him shifted. He could have stepped aside then. He could have let her in, given her warmth, mercy, food. But mercy was expensive out here. And trust was a currency-long counterfeit. "You'll find shelter south," he said, voice hard from habit. "Follow the trail till you reach the river. There's a town 2 miles past." Her mouth parted as if to answer, but only a breath escaped. Her knees gave way. He caught her instinctively, feeling the cold of her skin through his calloused hands. For a moment, she was weightless, a fallen bird. Then he steadied her, stepped back, and did what his fear told him to do. He shut the door. The sound of rain swallowed her. Elias sat again by the fire, but warmth would not come. The storm outside thrashed like guilt. He poured himself a drink, stared into the amber liquid as though it held answers. She would move on, he told himself. People always did. The land was merciless, but it did not lie. Only the hearts of men did that. Still, her voice lingered. That small, breaking plea. "Please take me in." He tried to drown it with whiskey, with the hiss of the fire, with the echo of the wind through the gaps in his roof. But memory rose, slow and venomous. Another winter, another knock. His wife's cough in the dark, her lips whispering for water, for help he could not afford to find. He had failed her then. And here he was again, holding the same silence, the same choice. He cursed under his breath, the sound torn between fury and shame. The chair scraped the floor as he rose. He grabbed his lantern, kicked open the door, and stepped into the storm. The rain lashed his face. The night had teeth. He scanned the ground, the porch, the trail beyond. Then he saw her, collapsed beside the woodpile, her hand still reaching toward the cabin as though even unconscious she believed someone would answer. He ran to her, kneeling in the mud. Her pulse was faint but steady. She had tried to crawl back. A creature of hunger, of faith, of something he had forgotten to believe in. "Damn it," he muttered, lifting her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Inside, the fire hissed at the rain dripping from her clothes. He laid her near the hearth, covered her with his old blanket, the same one his wife had sewn before the sickness took her. The sight clawed at his heart. He built the fire higher. Steam rose from her hair, curling like ghosts into the rafters. Her lips moved faintly, words he couldn't hear. He stirred the pot on the stove, ladled a bit of stew, and waited. Hours passed before she stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, glassy and confused. She looked at him as though trying to remember where mercy had come from. "You're safe," he said quietly. "Eat if you can." She tried to lift the spoon but trembled. He steadied her hand, feeding her small bites. Each swallow seemed to pull her further back from some edge only she had seen. When she found her voice, it was fragile but certain. "My name's Ayanna. Raiders came through our camp 3 nights ago. Took everything. Took my brother." He froze. Raiders. He knew their kind. Once, he'd been one of them, riding hard under false moons, burning and stealing for survival disguised as pride. The past shivered awake in his chest. She leaned closer to the fire, light flickering across her face. I followed them till I couldn't anymore. Thought maybe someone out here would listen. He said nothing. The fire cracked, throwing sparks between them like tiny suns. Thank you, she whispered. But he didn't feel like a savior. He felt like a ghost wearing borrowed kindness. Outside, the storm eased into silence. Inside, her breathing deepened, soft and steady. She slept curled beneath his blanket, trusting the stranger who had first turned her away. Elias sat watching her, the lines of her face caught between shadow and flame. A single tear formed on her cheek, glinting before it vanished. He leaned back, heart heavy, unsure if what stirred inside him was redemption or reckoning. The fire flickered once, then steadied. And somewhere in the hush that followed, he realized the rain had stopped. But something far more dangerous had begun. Gunfire cracked across the dawn like the earth itself was splitting. Elias woke with a jolt, reaching for the revolver that never left his side. But there was no enemy, only his own heartbeat, wild and loud in the silence. The dream had returned again, smoke, screaming, his brother's face swallowed by fire. He sat upright, sweat on his brow despite the chill. Across the room, Ayanna stirred beneath the blanket, her breath slow and even. Morning bled pale through the window, soft but cold. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silence too clean to trust. Elias rose, stirred the coals, poured water into a dented tin pot. Steam rose, and with it came the small, steady rhythm of this new morning. Two survivors pretending the world wasn't still hunting them. Ayanna sat up slowly, eyes flicking toward the window, as if afraid the sky might fall again. You didn't sleep, she murmured. He shrugged. Didn't mean to. She moved closer to the fire, her fingers brushing the warmth. The light made her look older than the night before, but stronger somehow. Thank you for helping me, she said, her tone careful, as though gratitude might cost too much to spend. Elias nodded, but didn't meet her eyes. He'd done enough wrong in his life to know kindness rarely came clean. You'll need to rest one more day before heading south, he said. There's food enough here till then. She shook her head. I can't wait. They have my brother. The ones who raided our camp. If I stop, he dies. The spoon in his hand clinked against the metal bowl. The sound felt like a gunshot. You're not tracking raiders alone, he said flatly. Her jaw tightened. I've done worse alone. He stared at her, really looked. Beneath the weariness, her eyes burned with something he recognized. The same fire that had once driven him to pick up a gun and call it justice. Only hers was purer, untouched by greed or vengeance. She wanted to save someone. He wanted to save himself from what he'd been. He exhaled slowly. Tell me what you saw. She did, every detail. The fire, the screams, the men who wore wolf pelts over their shoulders and carved ash symbols into their rifles. He listened, jaw stiffening with every word. He knew those markings. He'd ridden under that symbol once, long before he'd buried the name that went with it. When she finished, she met his gaze. You know them. The air went still. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. The truth was already sitting heavy between them like another body in the room. He turned away, poured the coffee, set the cup before her. His hands trembled slightly. They're led by a man named Briggs. You don't want to meet him. Her voice lowered. You did. He looked up. Long ago. Before I learned what kind of man he really was. For a moment neither spoke. The wind outside sighed through the cracks in the cabin wall, soft and mournful. Then she stood. If you know him, then you can take me there. He opened his mouth to refuse, but the words caught. He saw again his wife's hand reaching through the smoke years ago, her voice begging him not to leave for one last job. He hadn't listened. She died waiting. He set down his cup. If we go, there's no turning back. You understand that. Ayanna's eyes met his. I already burned my past. There's nothing to turn back to. That decided it. By noon, he had saddled 2 horses, the gray he trusted and the chestnut that hadn't been ridden since the day he buried his wife. The air smelled of wet pine and gun oil. Ayanna mounted with quiet grace, her braid falling against her shoulder. They rode through the thawing woods, the earth still soft with last night's rain. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the rhythm of hooves and the occasional whisper of wind through tall grass. The land stretched endless before them, gold and gray and full of ghosts. At dusk, they stopped by a ridge overlooking a narrow canyon. Smoke rose faintly from below, a camp. Ayanna leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "That's them." Elias nodded grimly. "You'll wait here. I'll go down first." But before he could move, she caught his arm. "No more waiting. I've done enough of that." There was no fear in her voice now. Only the steel of someone who'd lost too much to lose again. They crept closer through the scrub, the sky bleeding into the color of dying embers. The smell of whiskey and unwashed men drifted up from below. One wrong step and the earth crumbled beneath Elias's boot, sending a stone tumbling. Voices rose. A torch flared. Ayanna drew her breath sharply. He looked at her, eyes hard but not unkind. "If this goes wrong, you run. You don't look back." But she didn't move. Her hand brushed his for half a second, just enough for him to feel the tremor of her resolve. And then, through the smoke and fire below, he saw a figure bound to a post. A boy, no more than 16. The resemblance hit him like a bullet. Ayanna's brother, yes, but the face also carried something else, something that froze him to the bone. He blinked once, the truth dawning like lightning. That scar. That look. It wasn't just her brother down there. It was Briggs's son.